this. Got it. There we go. Okay. All right. So to get started, I'm just going to run down real quick what's going to happen today, and then I'll introduce our speakers and our panelists, and then we'll kind of get started into a conversation. So my name is Amanda Nelson. I am one of the board members here on PRSA. I'm wrapping up my term, as there are 3-year terms, and it has been such a delightful 3 years. But I kind of wanted to pull to get today's panel together to talk about something that is near and dear to my heart, and I think a lot of us, is this balance between showing up in a world where we craft statements to do a lot of different things, right? And how sometimes crafting those statements can impact our own personal identities. When Roe v. Wade was overturned last year, I was the director of comms for San Diego Pride and was kind of leading the response that Pride released around that time. And I just remember so much fear and anxiety and everything in my body, and having to place that aside so that I could show up for all the other people who are experiencing fear and anxiety. And it's kind of led me on this whole chaos to cozy bodily embodiment response and kind of things, I guess. And so I really wanted to bring this panel together. Part of my role on PRSA is the Professional Development Committee, along with Cheryl Robinson here on this call. And so we wanted to really make sure we're not talking just tools and techniques, but also our health and wellness. Because we are the first to craft responses. We are the first to filter the public's response to those responses. And that can be a really challenging thing. So that's why we're all kind of here today. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce our speakers. I'm going to start with Crosby. She is a PR genius. For many years, she ran PR Couture, which was a fashion PR everything, resources. They did events, they did lots of stuff. And she's recently pivoted into somatic and embodiment work, and I'll let her speak to that a little bit more. We also have Loretta Turner. Loretta and I went to grad school together. We both have our master's in nonprofit leadership and management. And Loretta has been on a multi-year journey to really figure out how leaders can do good and what employee wellness looks like within doing good and being an employer who treats employees well, and then also being an employee advocate. And then we have Hiram. Is it Hiram or Hiram? I'm sorry.
Hiram is fine. Thank you.
And Hiram is with Mixed Communications, who is a, I believe now, all remote team who recently moved down to a 4-day work week. And so we wanted to also bring in a little bit of the agency side, and how an agency like Mixty that works with a lot of social justice campaigns is handling a 4-day work week. So those are our people. It's going to be great. I need to switch over to where my agenda is. Okay. So what we're going to move into next is Crosby is going to kind of lead us through a little somatic body scan. If your camera's on, feel free to turn it off. But this is just kind of a nice way for us to open up and, I think, get into our bodies for this conversation. So Crosby, let's kick it off.
Thanks, Amanda. Hi, everybody. Yeah, I figured this is the middle of the day. We've all been doing many things, and now we're going to spend a little bit of time together. So I figured a nice kind of grounding presencing practice would feel nice. If you are driving or walking or in a place where you are distracted, you can also just do this in your mind. It's a pretty mental practice, but just kind of knowing you can have kind of a part of your brain that's doing this while the other part of your brain is, making sure that you're braking appropriately. So just that kind of a caveat. I'm going to teach you one of my favorite little tools for just kind of immediately coming into greater awareness and sort of balance. To start, all you really need to do ideally is be seated and in as much of a comfortable position as you possibly can. So once you've sort of found that comfortable, sort of quiet space, you can close your eyes if that feels good. You can just sort of have them glancing down if that feels better. You might also want to just put a hand on your heart and just sort of shift your awareness. When we're inside of these sort of virtual spaces together, it's very much about togetherness and sort of collaboration. We want to kind of move a little bit inward. So placing a hand on the heart and just shifting our awareness and letting our environment kind of drop away. I'm sure that you, like me, have a lot of other things vying for your attention, various to-do lists, maybe a difficult conversation that you need to have or had earlier today, pressing items of any kind. And I just want to encourage you, if you feel comfortable, to find something in your environment. It could be a plant or your work bag or your kitchen table, whatever it is. Just kind of mentally place those items over there, or those thoughts or those needs or those to-do lists. You can imagine kind of hooking them on to whatever your kind of object is, and just know that they'll be there for you to grab when you need to grab them. But right now, we're just going to take a couple of deep breaths. You might pull yourself back a little bit in your chair and even down a little bit to really put yourself kind of in a sort of sensing state. Okay, so we're going to start with just placing one hand on the forehead. This connects to your frontal lobe, which is where we process emotions in the brain. And then the other hand is just going to come behind and kind of hold the back of the head. And you don't want to be sort of smushing your head together, but you do want to have just enough tension in both hands that you can kind of lean your forehead into your palm. This is the frontal occipital hold. It's a really powerful way to ground and kind of rebalance and also diffuse negative emotions. I think of it a little bit like a hard restart on your laptop. It just gives us an opportunity to kind of do a system reboot. And what we're doing, again, we're kind of syncing up the occipital lobe, which is where all of our past experiences and memories live, and our frontal lobe, which is where kind of our nearer term emotions live. And if your arms or your elbows start to hurt, it's totally normal. You can always take them down and come back into it. But we're just going to start by like allowing ourselves to support ourselves and to feel into that sense of sort of being held. And as you're holding there, just keep breathing. If you notice any yawning or eyes watering, those are all really good signs that your system is sort of calming down, processing, reintegrating. If you don't have any of those, that doesn't mean that you're doing it wrong, but just you might find yourself yawning or anything like that. So you can keep your hands there if that's feeling really good to you. And you can do this at any time. This is a really good one to do if you're on a particularly stressful like Zoom call and you're allowed to be off camera. You can always kind of put yourself here, and it's a way of just sort of reconnecting to your inner experience and creating a little bit of grounding and settling. As you continue to breathe, I want you to shift your awareness now from kind of the top of the head to your entire sort of body system. And imagine all of the cells in your body, all, I don't know, 50 bajillion of them, all those cells breathing alongside with you. This is called cellular breathing. And it really wakes up the body. And as you inhale, imagine those cells sort of expanding. And as you exhale, they're kind of contracting. For me, I often get a sense of my body as sort of a universe of its own. And I can sort of sense all of those cells like stars in a desert night sky or something. So just spend a little bit of time sort of waking up your body by sensing those cells breathing in concert with your actual breath. And just notice what that feels like. If you're still feeling a little bit distracted or this isn't really coming alive for you quite right, I would encourage you again to place that hand on the heart and just say a little hello to our bodies. We spend so much time hanging out in our brains and in our heads. I have a friend who says that she feels a lot of the time like a balloon on a string, and the balloon is her sort of head and intellectual space, and then she's got this string that she's sort of carrying along with her, that's her body. So we want to go in and just say hi to our body, just like give it a little hello. And then also notice if your body is sort of saying hello back, and see if you can notice any sort of shifting or warming or tingling, or if your awareness is immediately drawn to a particular part of your body. We're just bringing our bodies online a little bit, opening up that connection between our body and our mind. You can add a couple of breaths with that cellular breathing. And now I'm going to walk you through a pretty quick body scan just to see what we notice and to see what's there. So noticing how your body feels in the moment, noticing again any areas of tension, discomfort. Those could be more emotional sensations like fear or excitement or worry, or it could also be something just physical, like, oh, I need to stretch after my workout this morning, or I'm a little bit hungry, or my right ankle's hurting, whatever that is. Just kind of notice where your attention is going. And then we're going to imagine a gentle sort of warm light. Light works. Sort of smoke can also work. Give that any color you wish. It could be a golden color. You love hot pink like me, maybe a hot pink light, whatever it is. But kind of anchor that light at the top of your head and have the sense like you've just sort of walked out on a warm day and you feel the sort of warming of like the sun on the crown of your head. And then we're going to pull that light into our eyes, into our face, into our jaw. This light is sort of healing, clearing, balancing energy. And as you inhale, you can imagine that light kind of coming down through the top of your head. And you can direct the light to any areas that need a little bit of extra love. If you need any sort of like clearing out of the cobwebs, if you're feeling especially tired too, you might sort of punch up this light a little bit to sort of awaken the face. And make sure that we're still breathing as we do this. And in this particular area, it's also sometimes good just to notice what the jaw is doing. So if you're clenching your jaw or your mouth is a little pursed, just see if you can widen, if you can create a little bit more space. behind the eyelids, in the jaw, behind your mouth. Just sort of widen the space and see if you can get a little bit more of an opening and a flow there. And then I'm going to start talking less and less, but this is the basic idea. From here all the way down, we're just allowing that light to move and clear any places of discomfort or tension. I'm going to offer you a statement that you might want to say to yourself. You might also have a statement that kind of rises from within, and that's great. But we're going to move a little bit more into the, we're going to stay kind of in the face. First thing I want to offer you is just the statement, I see clearly. So you might want to take a breath, having that awareness kind of in eyes, ears, jaw, top of head. I see clearly. As you move down into sort of neck and throat, and let that light kind of clear that space of the body, you might say something like, I believe in the power of my own voice. And as that light descends further into your shoulders, you can look for any sort of knots or tightness in your shoulders. So many of us are on the computer all the time and kind of have our shoulders up by our ears without even meaning to. So dropping those shoulders down, letting that light go where it needs to go. And I'll offer you, I know how to rest, as a statement you might offer to yourself here. As that light moves down into your arms, all the way down into your fingertips, guide that light to sort of cleanse and renew that space. And consider what message you might want to offer your arms. It might be something like, I honor what I am carrying. Or it could be, I'm carrying too much. Let's see what you might have to offer yourself there. And we're going to keep moving downwards to the chest and upper back, other places of common tension. So directing that light into your heart and lungs. And here you might offer the reminder, it is safe for me to feel this. And direct that right into that sort of heart area. It is safe for me to feel this. And now we're going to go down into the lower back, the abdomen. Notice if any particular sensations come up for you, memories, thoughts. Make sure you're still breathing. Check your jaw and your shoulders. Make sure you haven't clenched back up. And in this space, I'll offer you the I've got my own back statement. Now we're going to go into our hips and thighs, clearing any tightness or stiffness there. Investigate any sort of inner sensations in this area. And if you'd like to, you can direct the statement, I can easily access my creativity and vitality. So this area of your body. And then finally, we're going to go down into our calves, our ankles, and our feet. If you have a regular grounding practice and you want to drop the roots from your feet into the center of the earth or a grounding cord, go ahead and do that. You might want to offer yourself the statement, I am supported, or I am held up by the earth. And then we're just going to close with a couple of deep breaths. And you might want to say aloud to yourself, just a real simple, I am here, I am here, I am here. And when you're ready, you can go ahead and open your eyes. Consider if there was anything that you set aside for this exercise. Like, oh yeah, I put all that stuff over there that was really important when we started this. And just consider if you want to bring any of that back into your field of awareness, go ahead and do that. If things can stay sort of outside of the field for the next little bit of time that we have together, go ahead and leave it there. You can always pick it up. It's always there for you.
Wow, Crosby, thank you. I think that was amazing. Please use the chat throughout this conversation so that we can streamline our Q&A. I hope you all found that kind of opening act a little helpful and a little calming, and maybe you learned a movement or two that you can do at a later date. So I think that that's kind of what I hope everybody walks away here with, is some tips and tricks to bring back to your office. So let's now move into discussion. Let's see, I'm going to start with Hiram. I'm going to ask you to share a little bit about mixed communications and the 4-day work week.
Thank you, and thank you, Crosby, for that great exercise. Yeah, I work with mixed communications this year. At the beginning of this year, we started the 4-day work week as a test, as an experiment. It might sound counterintuitive for an agency to work 4 days a week instead of 5, knowing that PR is a 24/7 job. We did it because we wanted to make sure that people had the time and the space to take care of themselves and to find more balance between the work that we do and the lives that we live. And so far, I mean, there's many ways to measure this, right? One is productivity, the other is mental health, the other is, staff happiness, etc. I can say that all of our metrics in those areas are very positive. And I think the one that represents the biggest challenge is making sure that you have a strong team to make it work. Because when you have some folks that are not working on one day, then somebody else needs to do the job. So it's not like, I'm not at the office, so the work is not going to get done. The work will get done. It's just it will be done by somebody else. And so it's a tremendous logistical challenge, if you will. Not just logistical, but also knowledge-based, because you have, as you know, an agency has many clients, and you need to have a certain group of folks who are knowledgeable about the client so they're able to respond when somebody's not there. We're doing a lot of sharing of results, if you will, with our 4-day work week experiment. We have a blog post coming up on our website, gomixed.com. We have a video. I think it's under about, or what it's like to work at Mixed, where we talk about, how this is going. And just today is actually my day off. Today is my Friday off. But I've done a little bit of work, and I want to make a point of it, because 4-day work week means that sometimes you do work on your day off. It's not your entire day. You won't have any meetings, but you do, you catch up, or you do some minor things to get going, or to not have other emergencies later on. So in reality and practice, it's more like 4-day work week with maybe an hour or two or none on the day that you're off. What does that look like on the day that you're off? Well, it depends on your lifestyle. It depends on your life's priorities. It depends on what you do. Take care, by going to the gym. I visit my father, my parents, etc. So everybody's different, and that's kind of a nice, summary of what's been happening at Mixed this last year.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing. I think you had a great point around work is still going to get done. And it's just trusting your team and trusting you have the systems and processes and stuff in place. Can you share a little bit about how clients have maybe received some of this 4-day work week? There's always that client who is just, how could you, or how are you navigating some of those conversations?
Seamless experience for the client. That's the goal. So the way we're structured, we make sure that when we communicate with the client communicates with an entire team, not just one person. And that ensures that everybody on the team, that account, is able to see what let's say a request is. And so for the client, it's not even relevant to tell them 4-day work week because it doesn't matter. They're getting the job done. I think we have mentioned it to a couple of them, but it hasn't been really a thing. So they hired us for a job, and the job's getting done. And yeah, are
Can
people
you
working
explain?
10-hour days?
Yeah, can you explain a little bit about the logistics of it? It's my understanding that you have people in the office Monday through Friday, and then people either work Monday through Thursday or like Tuesday through Friday. How does
That's
that
right.
work?
That's right. Yeah, no, thanks for asking that. Yeah, so people get either Monday or Friday off. Half of the company one day, half of the company the other. And then I think Cheryl, and hello Cheryl. Yeah, in terms of working extra hours, not really, no. And this is where you need to be really intentional about your efficiencies and the systems and processes you have in place so that you can get the job done in the required time. And that's a tip of the iceberg type of thing. There's a lot of things that go behind the scenes as it relates to that. But no, I'm not working 10-hour days, actually.
Okay, thank you. I just I know some places will make it 4 10s and then you have that day. So it
Right.
really is shortening the work week legitimately.
It is.
Although everybody in PR, no one works really an 8-hour day, but conceptually, right? Cool.
Yeah,
Thank
no,
you.
I mean, it happens that you have to work more sometimes, but hey, we signed up for this. This is our choice. We selected this industry. So, that's where we signed up for.
Right. I love that though, is that it's still getting the work done within 8 hours and being really intentional about it. The kind of last question to touch on with this, and I know we'll kind of come back as more things are discussed, but I know that MXD does a lot of social justice campaigns and a lot of the challenging aspects of HR or PR. When I worked with MXD, we did a TikTok campaign for affordable housing, and it was really interesting, kind of the feedback and the stuff. So, how does MXD kind of prepare its staff or support its staff when it comes to some of these social justice campaigns? I know MXD staff is very diverse. And so I presume that there's a lot of identities that are touched when working on this. Can you speak to any of that?
Sure. Thank you for that question. It doesn't make that much of a difference in terms of the type of work we do. Social justice, yeah, I mean, you might get called on a weekend or a late Friday, as it happened with the Trump administration, with every bad decision was being released on Fridays evenings, and you just jump on it. And again, that's the nature of the work. I think for the way we do it is just making sure that we have the right team in place that can respond quickly when they need to. And again, it's something that we sign up for, and it's something that's expected when there are issues that arise that need to be addressed right away. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, you did. Thank you. I'm going to pivot over to Loretta as we're talking about kind of the employee perspective and being a leading where you are to be able to deliver in this team space that MXD has. So, Loretta, can you tell us a little bit about your employee wellness and what do good leadership is, and kind of your zone of genius?
Sure, I'd be delighted to. So the name of my company is Do Good Leadership, and our tagline is helping social impact professionals do good and be well. I know the do good piece in doing social impact work, working at a nonprofit, doing PR work is so apparent, right? A lot of us got into our careers because we just had that empathetic, that emotional pull, that opportunity to say, oh my God, I get to collect a paycheck every week and have an impact in my community and do good for the world. That's so awesome. And alongside of that, what we've seen over the last decade, but really over the last couple of years with the pandemic, is that doing good and working based on like our emotional connection to a mission really isn't enough at this point. When we think about social impact organizations and how under-resourced folks are working in them, it really isn't enough to say, well, you do good work. Like, isn't that enough? Don't you feel fulfilled? I'm also very much working within the San Diego community, where we just heard that San Diego is the most expensive city in America, although 1 in 10 people live in poverty and almost 40% of people are considering leaving the city. And when we think about what that means for social impact professionals, we're ultimately saying out loud, we have a need here to help people in our community, to help the community thrive and be healthier. But the people that the people that are responsible for helping that good happen actually can't afford to live here. And so the business model that I've built is really centered on the both and. A lot of times we say that social impact organizations and nonprofit organizations have a double bottom line, right? The first bottom line is, of course, always being financially smart, financially solvent. And the second bottom line is making sure that you're meeting the need, having the impact. I would argue that now there's a third bottom line. How do you actually take care of the people that you are putting all of this responsibility onto? And so the work that I do, the conversations that I have, the workshops that I lead, the strategy that I've implemented is all about centering the well-being of social impact professionals to ensure that they can actually do good, to ensure that they can preserve their time, their talents, their energy, their treasures, and bring that to a sector who so desperately needs people to continue to show up and do good. So that's what we do.
I love that. And I think the people on this call, kind of knowing where some of us work, we're in spaces where we all want to just make the world slightly better from wherever we're at, and we want to help bring the organizations that we're working with to the people who want to hear them. And that's why we all got into this. We're in PR, I think, for a reason. And every time I meet more PR professionals, I'm always like, yep, you make sense. It makes sense. Yeah. Same with, I think, like social impact. And I think there's a lot of overlap. And so I love what you're creating. One of the questions I kind of have for you is how can this and both kind of that you talked about, like how can employers and employees support each other, especially when it comes to, I don't know how comfortable you're sharing your current situation, but I feel like that's a really prominent kind of thing. But how can employees better advocate for themselves?
Yeah, let me answer that second question. How do employees better advocate for themselves? And so to Hiram's point, you have to first recognize that you did subscribe to wanting to do social impact work, and that it is at a lot of times going to be grueling. It's going to be challenging. At least for me, I know going into nonprofits, like I heard right away that the expectation was that I would be making 20% less than, my peers that are working in for-profit or private companies. So to some degree, advocating for yourself and protecting yourself is recognizing how the system currently operates. Like I was just having this conversation this morning over coffee. The nonprofit industrial complex sucks. Resource dependency sucks. But you have to also recognize that when you commit to having a nonprofit job or a PR job or whatever it is, there is a culture that exists that ultimately says that this is really hard work and there isn't a balance. And alongside operating in a system that is deeply, deeply flawed, you have to know what your boundaries are, what well-being looks like for you, what hill you are willing to die on, and then get into a practice of standing in that power day after day after day. I tell folks all the time, and this is very much related to the issue that I'm dealing with one of the organizations I support, it is very much a PR issue. There are folks right now, and I'm not going to get into the details of it, that are demanding that the organization make a public statement. And I very much understand that that's coming from a place of living into your own values and wanting to stand into your power and knowing how to advocate for what's important for you. And at the same time, you have to look at the greater picture here and recognize that asking an organization to take a stance or to make a statement can cause a lot of harm to the organization, to the people in the organization, to the constituents that the organization serves. So it is always this delicate dance that for me starts with knowing yourself first. I'll use myself as an example. My two values, my biggest values, are wellness and accountability. And so I know no matter what client I'm working with, no matter what room I'm in, I'm going to stand into my power of advocating for wellness and being held accountable and holding others accountable to not compromising well-being. That's how I know how to advocate. I know that those are the two things that I will live into. Those are the two things I will always speak on. And I do my own self-work around how do I embody that, right? If I say that my values are accountability and wellness, how do I live a life that actually embodies it? Now, when it comes to work, I know that I'm going to come into the space. I'm always going to be talking about these things. And when those things are compromised, I've got to put up walls. Right? When I feel like my well-being is compromised, or when I feel like I'm being positioned in a way that I can't hold myself accountable, or I'm working with people who don't hold themselves accountable, I have to know when to wave the white flag and say, this is not how I do things. And that is waving the white flag, and advocating is a large spectrum, right? It can be something as tiny as I'm waving the white flag and I no longer want to participate in these meetings, or I'm waving the white flag and we need to reconsider if this is going to be a part of my job description, or I'm waving the white flag and I quit, right? And not that I want to advocate for or encourage everyone to just quit their jobs. I know it's not as easy as that. I know there's, the ability to be able to quit and walk away comes with a lot of privilege that many of us probably don't have access to, but it is the ability to start with yourself, to know yourself. What are your values? What are the things that you have to protect as far as your time, your treasure, your talent, what you bring into the space? And when you feel that tension in a workplace, how do you protect it?
I love that. And I wish I had some of this knowledge, 15 years ago when I was starting my career. It took me a lot, once I became a director, to really kind of then embody some of those values. And I love what you touched on knowing your values.
Yes.
When you know who you are and what your values are, you're able to advocate for yourself and for others when you're rooted into that.
100%.
And
it's the reasoning that you have in the back pocket. It's your why, right? If someone were to ask me, why don't you go to these meetings anymore? Or why are you now working part-time? It's like, because this is what I value. This is what's important to me. And it's being compromised. Hard stop. Right? If we can't work in unison and make sure this thing that is so essential to my being and my well-being is honored, then I'm good. Then I'm good on that.
Yeah. And that's a very powerful place to be in. And, again, to the point of we all chose to be in PR, but we don't choose to be disrespected, and we don't choose to do things that go against our values. And I saw a TikTok the other day of someone saying, you can't get in trouble with another adult. And yes, we can when we talk about the law, but when we're talking about like our boss or a client being upset about something, even if it's valid, they don't have more power over you as another adult, right? Like, you can't get in trouble with another adult. You can get in trouble, of course, but just, I think sometimes it can be really like, just madness sometimes, especially with PR, if you're going back and forth on the color green. Somebody wants forest green over jade green, but their brand is mint green. And it's like, okay, you know what? We're going to do this pose. We're going to get ourselves recalibrated, and we're going to focus on what really matters. What are the values? So thank you for all.
One more thing I'll add to that. I want to make sure we give everyone some voice here is And speaking about like, you know, you can't get in trouble with another adult. I think another thing to keep in mind, it's really easy to say like, all right, these are my values. I don't want to get in trouble. I need to put like some space around me. But you also have to, again, look in the mirror and hold yourself accountable to not stepping on your own boundaries. And a quote that I actually keep taped to my computer all the time is you teach people how to treat you by what you allow, what you stop, and what you reinforce, right? So as much as it's easy to say, oh my God, I'm super overwhelmed. I, don't have any space to do what I want because work is overwhelming me and people are asking so much of me. To what degree have you been totally clear about what is and isn't okay as it relates to working with you? And sometimes, at least for me, that comes with not always being liked, not always being the favorite person in the organization, but I'm not here to be liked. I'm here to have an impact. I'm here to do a good job without compromising my well-being.
Right. I love that. Crosby, let's talk a little bit about if you can share just a little bit about your PR background and maybe if that inspired you into what you're getting into now, or I know when we spoke, you were kind of like, oh, there is a connection. So tell us a little bit about yourself, PR, and your somatic work.
Sure. So quickly, I discovered public relations in grad school. I was like, oh my goodness, what a great way to be both strategic and creative. For me, it was less on the nonprofit social impact and more on the idea of being able to work with artists, in particular, like fashion designers, emerging designers. I love the idea that by using the things that come pretty easily to me, certain communication, visual communication, language, all of that I could help someone do their art full-time. And I thought contributing to a world where there were more full-time artists was a way to benefit, society as a whole. Went through a variety of experiences, in-house agency, solopreneurship, all of that. And at the same time was running PR Couture, which was sort of a fashion PR blog turned professional development platform, and went through various iterations, ultimately kind of experimenting with career coaching and then moving into working with agency owners as a business coach and consultant. And I've danced my whole life. I was a competitive Irish dancer many, many moons ago. During the pandemic, kind of reconnected to dance. I would do these little Instagram dance parties by this choreographer who did a bunch of the choreography for like Sia videos and stuff. And it was so fun. And I was like, oh, this is fun. And I'm feeling a lot of joy in my body and a lot of connection. And I would find that after I would dance, I would have so many, it was like it cleared out my head and I would have really creative ideas, places where I felt really under-resourced. I could suddenly write the sales page or the name for the thing would come into my brain. And I love learning things. And I think one of I was thinking, Loretta, as you were speaking, like, what would I say my 2 top values are? And I think really at the top is curiosity. So anything that I'm curious about, I give myself full permission to go in like full research, like ordering all the books, it's researching all the certifications, et cetera, et cetera. And what I really came to feel was that in professions like this that are service-oriented, service-based, that are very much about, and I love a good wordplay, like it's so beautiful, the puzzle pieces and the putting together of just the right language. I love that. And yet I was feeling like we were often trying to make decisions about life, about business, about how to engage with a particular client, about coming up with unexpected pitch angles and all of that. And we were doing that as though we were beings from the neck up. And we were ignoring the fact that our body has its own intelligence. These are things that have been known and forgotten. There are elements of sort of somatic practice in all cultures and communities throughout time. But some of the ways in which, capitalist patriarchy, et cetera, has put us into sort of this machine-oriented, contribute, give, serve mentality can keep us really disconnected and make us forget that we are whole embodied beings. I think a lot now about why we're drawn to PR as a career, and in particular to the fact that we're so often put in a place where it's sort of a never enough, right? You achieve something, you reach some great height, clients like, okay, what's next? You aren't able to fully sort of commandeer the ship. You are responsible for an editor, someone else saying, yes, this has value as a marker of your own success. And I don't think any of these things are sort of good or bad, but I just notice and have gotten curious about why this profession felt like such a good fit for me, and why we're attracted to it, what we're trying to heal or solve for by putting ourselves in this sort of environment. And I'm really sitting with this question of like, I signed up for this. And to your point, like, what exactly did I sign up for? Right? Did I sign up for an expectation that I'm on the hook for other people constantly all the time, and my time is not my time? Am I on the, did I sign up for participating in sort of an industry that I think is so well-intentioned and so often sort of grappling with itself in ways that are somewhat sometimes more successful than others? I think that's such a powerful question to ask yourself around career, around any relationship, really. What exactly did I sign up for? What are my expectations, and is it a fit? I think after 15 years of running PR Couture, that's a lot of 3 to 5 times a week blog posts. That's a lot of conversation about PR theory and frameworks and market. Like, I ran out of steam talking about this particular subject because it felt like the surface of a much more interesting, I'm sure you've seen like the conscious subconscious iceberg visualization. It sort of felt like inside of PR Couture, I could talk about the tip of the iceberg, but actually it was really interesting. And what's ultimately really powerful is everything else that's going on underneath for all of us, right? For our clients, for our coworkers, for ourselves. And so the various modalities that I've been studying and like the coaching and stuff that I've been doing has, been around just sort of like activating that understanding that we're more than just our heads, and getting to a place where we are more resourced, that we go into our communities, and when we stand in places of leadership, we have the ability to do that, and we have the ability to do that without betraying ourselves, without completely casting ourselves to the wayside. So I think that's some of the ways that like the somatic embodiment world has some really interesting applications for really any service-based business owner or practitioner, but particularly in public relations, where we're so often in the other, we're so often doing something on behalf of someone else. Maintaining a sense of connection and understanding and lived experience in the body can be a really powerful tool.
Yeah, thank you. Just looking at our time, we've got about 8 minutes left. So I'm going to ask everybody one final question. I didn't see any questions in the chat, so I think everybody's just kind of absorbing this. And I hope
One
this has
from
been
Paulina. I don't know if you want to Hiram.
Oh, there we go. There we go. I see it. I didn't scroll down. My God, you guys. Hiram, would you like to answer this question?
Sorry, what is the question?
Do you think that workplaces have the capacity to move outside the current work norm? And if not, how do you determine that, and how did you make that shift for Mixty?
I think it's up for our imaginations to do whatever we want to do. And I think there's a sense of empowerment that the way the world has been given to us is not the way that the world should continue to work. And so that's part of the social justice mindset, and it should also be part of the social justice mindset in an agency, in a company. So we can do whatever we want. It's a matter of making sure that it's checking boxes like productivity, deliverables, making sure that we're continuing to do the work that we need to do, that we were hired to do. So yes, it starts with some organizations, you know, breaking ground, like the 4-day work week. Now you heard a little bit about what Mixty has done. You know, reach out if you want to do that in your agency or in your company. If you want to promote it, I'm happy to give you talking points and our experience and data so that you can take it and, you know, do it wherever you are. And the 4-day work week is just one aspect, right? I think a lot of it is, what can the company do for me? There's a lot of things that we can do for us, and a lot of the stress that comes with PR is actually a lot interpersonal, and how we deal with stress, how we deal with factors that we can control, factors that we cannot control. What is our relationship with fear? What is our relationship with stress? What is our relationship with many things that also invite all of us to reflect on and to learn about, so that we can arm ourselves and prepare ourselves on how what our relationship is with the world and with other human beings. So we can do whatever you want. Basically, it's just a matter of, you know, having the right data and the right support.
I love that. I do say that to clients and in meetings all the time, you know, like, let's make it up. What do we have the opportunity, let's make it up. So one question I want to ask everybody is, how do you give yourself wellness? What fills your cup? What do you do when the world is like it is right now and you feel helpless?
I'll jump in on that one. And this is what I tell a lot of the folks I work with, is that there is no one size fits all approach to wellness. And I also like to identify in my mind the difference between wellness and well-being. And so my wellness routine is always an act of self-care and sometimes a little bit of self-soothing, right? So self-soothing for me is like, I'm gonna get out the ice cream, I'm gonna get out some wine, I'm gonna put on RuPaul's Drag Race, and I'm just going to indulge as a way to soothe and heal what feels tender, right? So sometimes wellness for me is self-soothing, but more times than not, it's self-care. And what that means is getting enough sleep, staying hydrated, sometimes staying off of social media, getting exercise, you know, engaging in the habits that are ultimately going to actually heal the wound rather than just like, you know, make me feel warm and fuzzy because I just ate an entire pint of ice cream. And so that's my wellness routine. And that can look so different for so many people, right? Wellness could be working out. It could be skipping the workout. Wellness could be, you know, booking the trip and going on vacation, or like clearing your calendar for a week and staying home and having some intimate time in solitude. The well-being piece for me is like the bigger umbrella. And when you commit to wellness habits, a wellness routine, a wellness schedule, then you're helping your overall well-being, right? Your mental well-being, your emotional well-being, your physical well-being. Yeah, so it can look like a lot of different things. Know that a wellness practice is how you find a more balanced and whole state of well-being.
I love that. And I love the difference between wellness and well-being, and self-care and soothing, right? They're very different. Crosby, what about for you?
I think it comes kind of to that curiosity, like the curiosity is sort of the guiding piece. So curiosity might mean movement to see really what's going on in my body. I think dance is usually a good idea, even if I really don't want to, just a little bit of movement, swaying, turning side to side, can be really great. And then the other piece of it, it's that relationship between sort of self and other. So in the examples that you're sharing about, curiosity might mean education. It might mean taking in information so that I feel more informed and clear about what's happening. It might be, you know, figuring out if there are any organizations that, you know, I want to volunteer with, or amplify the communications of, or donate, or whatever that is. So it's that sort of mix of tending to my physical being and body and the relationships that are directly in front of me, and then following my curiosity to take whatever kind of embodied action from that, I suppose, sort of aligns with my values and the person that I want to be in the world.
I love that. That's great. And Hero, what about you?
I'll be very brief. I know we're at the top of the hour. I just follow a simple set of rules for my own well-being. And number one thing, I don't worry about things that haven't happened. I worry when they happen, and I don't even call it worry, I call it concern. I don't make assumptions about things. I don't take anything personally. I see everything as an opportunity, and I do my best. And that's what I do every day. I try to live those values, and that brings me a lot of balance and a lot of peace.
I love that. So simple and just so good. Thank you, Crosby, Loretta, and Hiram for joining us today. And thank you to our attendees for being here. I hope you all found this conversation fruitful. Do reach out to MXD if you're looking to bring a 4-day work week to your organization, or you can offer the no meetings on Fridays, extending summer Fridays through the whole year. There's a lot of places you can start that conversation. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope you all have a good rest of your day and weekend. Bye. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Folks.